New segment time. Second segment. Wow, this podcast is running long, and the second segment's got lots of stuff in it. So let's make this quick here.
It's been like 20 minutes, right?
It's been 40.
Oh, we started at 7:40.
Yeah. Anyways, so today, the 24th, if for everybody watching this, is supposed to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. Hopefully.
Well, it was supposed to be yesterday.
Yeah, and then it was supposed to be the 21st, but looks like it got pushed back again. But anyways, I thought I'd just let everybody know, and I figured I could use this as the title, despite the fact that we're not even going to really talk about it that much, unless you have some comments to talk about it on.
Not really.
No. We've kind of talked it to death. It's going to be really cool. It's going to bring up some really cool information. And I'm jealous because it has the best stargazing spot in the entire solar system. The best stargazing spot within 1 million miles of here. But, whatever. I'm jealous. But in bigger news, we sent a spacecraft that touched the sun.
What do you mean touched?
So the sun has an outer atmosphere, right? Called the corona.
Mm-hmm.
And the Parker Space Probe just touched the corona.
Is it burned up?
No, it survived.
Oh.
And it's going to do this again, like 5 or 6 more times. Until like 2025. I don't remember what's planned after 2025 is.
Can you imagine what its velocity is right now? And if they just super launched it?
Oh, it's only
like the gravitational assist from it would be insane.
Yeah. It's only getting faster. And wow, the probe will be in 2024, it will be 3.9 million miles away from the sun's surface. That's crazy.
Yeah. That's what I said. Imagine if they super launched it,
Well, I mean, it would still burn up, though. That's part of the problem.
You said it didn't burn up.
Well, no, but I mean, at 3.9 million miles, you get much closer than that, you're done, bud.
Are you? I don't know how far they estimated it can go.
4 yards from the end zone. I don't know. That's still pretty damn close. Like, if we're talking like the sun.
Oh, is that like setting 100 meters? Is the Earth or what? What do you mean 4 yards from the end zone?
So, if the sun is the end zone, and the Parker Space Probe being 3.9 million miles away, that's the 4-yard line.
But what's 100 meters? Is that Earth or what?
It didn't say 100 meters.
Well, what's the scale?
It's just doing distance.
So what's your measurement you're comparing it to?
I don't know. It doesn't say. It just says, although this sounds far, researchers equate this probe sitting on the 4-yard line of a football field and the sun being the end zone.
So is the sun 20 yards long? Or 20 yards wide?
No, I don't know. I don't know. This is just distance.
Well, then
your
scale makes no sense. I don't understand what you just said.
It's doing distance, not size.
Yeah, but your scale makes no sense to me.
If the edge of the end zone is the edge of the sun's surface and the 4-yard line is 3.9 million miles away, that's where the Parker Space Probe is.
But you're not understanding me.
I know. You want to know how big is the sun on this scale? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Then it does matter because I don't know what 4-yard line means. Because Are you setting like 20 yards to be like the radius of the Earth? Because that's how long an end zone is, and then it's 4 yards from. 4 yards makes no sense. I could say, oh yeah, it's like 3 centimeters away on this scale. It's like 1 yard away on this scale. Well, what's your scale?
Okay, the
What is your
scale
scale
is
so
a
I can
football field. That's what it's saying. The scale is
So is it 100 yards where the Earth is?
I don't know. I guess now it doesn't.
See, now you understand my point. It makes no sense.
Who knows?
Your scale makes no sense.
It's not me. It's the article. Don't yell at me. Yell at the article.
I'm yelling at you because you said it.
Well, I mean, in theory, if you don't think about the size of the sun, that's really damn close.
But I don't understand it, though.
I don't know. It doesn't say. So I don't know. There isn't really a way to do that. So you could Google what the size of the sun is, and you can probably figure it out. I need that in kilometers, please. And I need the diameter. Why did this open? There's the sun. Why can't anything be in kilometers? Thank you. God. 1.3. Holy. The sun's a yard wide then.
See, your scale is broken. I don't understand it. Well, not your scale, the article scale.
Yeah.
They're just throwing numbers out there, and it makes no sense.
Okay, well, anyways, the sun's about a yard wide.
And so now it makes no sense. Because now it's saying, oh, so the Parker Space Probe is 4 sun diameters away?
Yeah, less than that.
That's my point. Your scale's broken.
Why are you... the article!
The article scale does not make any sense.
Because it doesn't make sense to you, and the one more I thought about doesn't make sense to me. But to most people who don't understand how scale works, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Think about it. People are like, oh, so like the probe is 4 yards from the edge of the sun. That's pretty cool.
This is what happens when you put idiots in charge of media.
However, the Parker Space Probe is probably like the size of an atom, maybe a cell, and the sun is a yard wide on this scale.
But nonetheless, how can it touch the corona if it's 4 diameters away?
That's the outer atmosphere.
But what's the diameter that you typed in, though?
That is the edge of the sun. That is the... That's the, what the hell is it called?
Core?
No.
Surface?
The what?
Surface?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's like the surface. I watched a whole video on it. It's in the corona, but the sun's thing is...
Photosphere? Oh, yeah, don't they have like something called a photosphere?
It is the photosphere.
That's the corona?
No! The corona is the corona. The photosphere is the photosphere.
Oh.
The photosphere is like what you would traditionally say is the edge of the sun.
Yeah.
But the sun has an atmosphere, because the sun isn't a defined size.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a defined size, but it's not like... It gets... its atmosphere gets thicker and thicker and thicker, you know. And its properties change as you go deeper in.
Mm-hmm.
And the edge of a star is of its atmosphere, anyways, is determined when the particles become faster than the magnetic waves.
What?
And they turn into solar wind. There's a line. There's a fine line. I mean, it's amorphously shaped because of the way magnetic field lines work around stars. but it's this transition point where you get solar wind instead of, yeah, because these charged particles travel at the speed. I don't remember. There's a whole video by Scott
Going
Manley.
with
You can
this.
watch it.
Where are you going with this?
Anyways, that's the edge of the corona, and that's where the Sparker space probe just skimmed.
I see.
But, pretty cool. Either way,
Now,
it's really not that close, but still pretty damn close. So,
closer than I've ever been to the sun.
closer than you ever will be to the sun.
Don't say that.
Do you want to be
I like
this close to the sun?
I like to dream big.
Do you want to be 3.9 million miles from the sun?
Be a pretty good view.
You'd be blind. Or
Pretty good view.
vaporized. And somehow
Maybe.
the corona's hotter than the surface. But I'm not gonna ask questions about why and how that works. I'm just gonna accept it as a fact and move on. Dr. Becky also talked about this in a video. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I figure end
Pretty
of the
neat.
world. What?
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, but I figured the end of the world is a bit more interesting. So here, let's briefly watch this here, shall we? I'm gonna mute it because this probably has some copyright music here. Okay, now it's gonna be gone.
Heat is fueling weather-related disasters at an unprecedented rate. Earlier this week, unseasonably warm weather brought Minnesota the first December tornado in its history.
I can't really hear it.
I can't make it any louder, so you got to turn your end up.
Okay, well, don't speak when it's over so I can turn my volume down so you don't blast my ears out when you talk.
Okay.
Many tornadoes to rip through the central U.S. December is typically a modest month for tornadoes, on average only 23 nationwide. But in 2021, 116 have been reported this month already. This isn't just a U.S. problem, it's a global one. A super typhoon has devastated the Philippines this week, leaving dozens of people. In fact, the world is poised to burn a record amount of coal next year, undermining efforts to cut greenhouse gas emissions. I want to bring in science educator Bill Nye. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So, Bill, we are seeing the results of...
In southern Florida would be underwater. And the problem with that is, you say, well, I've been around 19 inches of snow or something like that, but this would be catastrophic. A place like Florida would be, in southern Florida, would be underwater. And the problem with that is people will leave. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do when they leave? It won't happen instantly, but it'll happen fast enough. And this gets back to the old problem that we've been talking about for 30 years, where scientific concerns have not been heeded by governments, by people around the world, because generally the fossil fuel industry has been very successful at introducing this idea that scientific uncertainty, when will the glacier fall? Tomorrow? 10 years from now? Well, that's too uncertain. No, the scientific uncertainty is somehow the same as doubt about the whole thing. And this is leading to catastrophes big enough where I think people are noticing them.
Right. So, I mean, on that note, if it can take decades, as we know, to see, for example, the fallout from rising sea levels. So how do you convince people that now is the time to act when it's so hard to visualize?
Well, I don't think it's that hard to visualize right now. The tornadoes or the very large tornado that swept through Kentucky set all kinds of records. It was on the ground for 2.5 hours, went over 200 statute miles, tore up everything in December. So I think people will now be able to see that these
You good?
It cut out?
No, I wanted to talk about it because they're just gonna get into other stuff.
Oh, like it stopped in the middle of the sentence. I didn't know what happened.
What? I stopped it.
Oh.
You good? Can I talk at normal volume?
Oh yeah.
Right. So what they're talking about, they were talking about the tornadoes, but they were talking about this giant iceberg, and I accidentally skipped too far ahead, but I didn't want to listen to them yammer on about this other crap. But anyways, there's a glacier in Antarctica that is the size of Florida.
Yeah.
And it's become very unstable. It's started to crack.
Yeah.
Oh, have you heard about it?
No.
Anyways, they're calling it the Doomsday Glacier because there are estimates that in 5 years it will completely melt and raise the world's sea levels by like 2 feet.
Yeah.
And, this isn't like, an inch per year or whatever like they've been advertising. This thing, if something isn't done now, will break off the coast of Antarctica, collapse, and then raise sea levels.
Yep.
And if anybody knows a fun little fact about Florida, because they brought up Florida, the average elevation of Florida is 12 feet. Oh, is it 10 feet?
No, I said 18. That was my guess.
Oh, yeah, it's like 12 feet. So, 12 feet is shorter than the normal house. So, yeah.
So you're safe. You can climb on your roof.
Well, but your
You
house...
said it's shorter than the average house.
Yeah, but you're gonna be swimming... Either way, this glacier is bad news. And, everybody's been talking about sea levels gonna, in 2 decades or whatever, it's gonna, we're gonna have mass migrations, it's gonna it's starting to happen. This is gonna happen in the next 5 years. This will actually affect us on a real time scale that we can comprehend. Not 10 years, it's hard to comprehend a whole decade, especially when we've only been alive for 2.5.
Yeah.
But 5 years? Yeah, I can comprehend 5 years. Hell, the last 4 have been, pretty damn, yeah, we just talked about the last 4 years, they've been a thing. So, 4 years is pretty, it's high school, it's college.
The thing is, Earth is on a cycle, though. It does have periods of extreme heating and cooling and ice ages.
Right.
It operates on a normal scale. It's just that we are influencing the next cycle to occur sooner than expected.
Yeah, we're supposed
and the changes that have historically happened, I guess, could be more severe. I think it's inevitable that our species, 100,000 years from now, will go extinct. I think it's inevitable. But it's one of those things we like to feel like we're in more control than we are.
100,000 years, that's not a very long time.
That's just me throwing a number out there. Because the thing is,
120,000 years is the blink of an eye for a species.
Yeah, well, no, see, the thing is, right? Dinosaurs were around for several million years. All it took was a single asteroid, so the theory goes, to wipe them out.
And maybe a super volcano.
Then mammals came around, right? The first anatomically modern humans were like 50,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, do aliens exist? Because if they do, who's to say that, they're a million light years away or whatever? Well, by the time that we would ever get there, by the time we ever send a message there, there was a number that was thrown around that said like 100-some thousand years is the maximum lifespan of a complex civilization. So starting from industrial age, 100,000 years from now,
Really?
most civilizations die out. I mean, they estimate numbers, right? I mean, we can't. There's no data to base it off of.
Yeah.
But I read it somewhere, right? But the idea goes is that you send a message out, and the society is already gone by the time the message arrives there, because sending a message out is going to go at the speed of light. And so you could. And the idea is that some life cycles of Earth and other planets that are similar to Earth are going to go through the same phases. The extinction events are going to happen.
I mean, though, the thing about...
There have been, I think, 5 major extinction events. Seven major extinction events in Earth's 4 billion year history. I mean, yeah, sure, it may take millions of years. But the idea is that our life, human life, will end eventually. It's inevitable that it will end. We're not going to live to see the heat death, because the heat death literally means that there's a single proton left.
Right.
No one's going to. There's not going to be a society around it.
Nope.
But the problem is, are we increasing the expiration date? Are we making ourselves expire sooner than it could be? Similar to the idea, that a milk has expiration date of about, 2 or 3 weeks. Well, if you leave your milk sitting out overnight, every 10 degrees Celsius, you increase the temperature, biological and chemical processes multiply by 2 times. It doubles. And so your milk can expire quicker. You influenced something that could have been prevented, right? And so it's the same idea with climate change. Here's what we're doing now, the way that we're living our life, influencing something on a rate to where it will become noticeable in the entire species' lifetime. I think the answer to that is yes. And
in what way?
I mean, I don't know if it's 5-10 years, like they're saying.
Well,
I think I do agree. It is a problem that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, one that not a lot of people want to address because they feel stubborn. They want to keep making money because things are working the way they are. They know the sun's going to keep rising tomorrow. They know they're going to come home, and have, hopefully a family to return to every morning, It's those simple things in life that they're like, this isn't going to change overnight. But it'll slowly begin to dawn on them.
Is going to change overnight.
My point is that you're not going to wake up one morning and the sun's not going to rise. You're not going to wake up one morning and step in a puddle of water.
But I mean, this glacier, though, 5-year time span, that is overnight. People talk about, 5 years goes by in the blink of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't speak for us, but I mean, this 5 years will go by in the blink of an eye for the coast. It may come in the form of a hurricane, like Katrina, that permanently floods areas of Florida. Or it may just be a slow, gradual boil to the point where one day you wake up and you're sitting in a pool of water because a levee broke down the street that we didn't think was going to break. We thought it was going to last. But there was some liquefaction of some sand beneath the levee that caused it to break that the engineers missed when they built it. Because that happens a lot in Florida. And now you're moving to the Midwest because there's nowhere else for you to go.
It's also one of those things, you think about 5 years, it's like, it sounds unlikely. I mean, I don't want to be the one to say that they're wrong. I don't know if they are wrong.
I
I've
hope
never
they're
crunched
wrong.
the numbers. It's one of those things, you hope they're wrong. But it's also one of those things, it sounds a little far-fetched. Just like 5 years. Gosh. It sounds unlikely, but, I'd never crunched the numbers. I don't know what all the data they're pulling in to come up with these numbers. And if it is true, I don't know what we do to stop it. Because I'm sure they're using projections. If we continue our current output of, CO2 and historical rises in temperature, this is what would happen. We also have to remember that, it's a huge, huge mass block of ice. And, I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen something, that massive melt before. So we don't know, I mean, I'm sure there's formulas out there, taking the density of ice and all that. You can figure out, Newton's law, how long it take to melt and all that. I'm sure it can be done.
They're just saying that it's like once it collapses, they don't know. That's the thing. They know it will take 5 years for it to melt. They just don't know when it's going to collapse.
Wait. Well, once it melts, wouldn't it run off into the ocean or what? No.
So this thing, it's gonna break off the coast of Antarctica.
Yeah.
However, it's going to collapse before then because it's a massive iceberg here. And once it does, we know it will take 5 years for it to all mix into the ocean, raising the sea level 2 feet in 5 years.
I thought you said 12 or...
No, that's the average elevation of Florida.
Oh, it'll raise it 2 feet.
It'll raise it 2 feet. Which is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing's the size of Florida. So,
yeah.
12. So we don't know when it's going to collapse. That's the thing. That's what they were talking about. It could be 10 years. It could be 20. It could be tomorrow. All we know is that when it does, we have 5 years to...
But see, the thing that I never really understood, right, is how you know where the water is going to end up, right? Because the ocean is not uniformly at a constant height. The difference, like the Panama Canal, right? The Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean have a difference of like 40 feet or 40 meters or something.
I mean, it's probably an average.
But my point is, right, is that the ocean is not at the same...
Oh, no, yeah. I thought about
everywhere.
this.
And so how do you know where the water is going to end up, right? Because it also depends on Earth's rotation. Earth's rotation is going to make the water pool up towards the equator. Because that's where it's going to get sloshed around to, that's where the Earth's bulge is the equator.
Yeah, I thought about
and
this.
So
I was like,
how do they
go?
know how high it's going to rise? How do they know, like, how the influence of all the land masses? Because, I'm sure even a land mass, like, South America, whatever, it could affect where the water's going to go.
I mean, it's possible
And
with
so
just a thing of this size.
How do they know that enough water is going to end up in Florida to the point that it raises the elevation 2 feet? And how do you know how far inland it's going to go as well?
So, I mean...
Because there's also buildings. How do you know how far inland all the water's going to go? That's a part of it I never really understood.
I have no idea how they calculate those numbers. I'm sure there's some supercomputer somewhere that has it all crunched and knows.
Yeah.
I mean, that all can be modeled.
Yeah, but I'd like to know. I know it can be. I'd like to know like how that's solved.
I wouldn't want to see those equations. They're nasty.
I would.
They're probably pages and pages.
Oh, I know,
and pages.
but I'd like to understand it. It's something I'm intrigued about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could go get your master's and study climate and climatology.
Maybe.
Go study climate change. Go study this iceberg before it breaks off and ends some third world country's economy. That's arguably what's going to happen. Yeah, sure, some people in Florida are going to be homeless. But more than likely, we're just going to see some third world countries completely collapse because now they know.
The thing is, what I'm kind of on the fence about is, say this does happen in 5 years. We're not going to change our ways overnight, I don't foresee.
Nope.
Until we see literal effects from it.
It's too late.
And even then, it's not like we're just all of a sudden just going to switch off power from power plants and just say, sorry, only solar and wind and renewable sources now. No.
Germany did it.
I don't foresee the U.S. doing that.
Oh, we can't. I mean,
because we're literally a world. If we stop doing that, we literally would make the world go into a crisis.
Oh, you want?
Because we are the major. What are we ranked 4th in exports or something?
Yeah.
We're like a leading or first. I don't even know. We're like a top contributor to the world's exports.
It's China. Then the U.S. more than likely.
Second. That's still my point, though. Then China would be affected, too.
China doesn't care.
They've got a coastline.
They've got 1.4 billion people. They need if
levees
need to be built tomorrow, they could have the entire coast of China raised within a year.
What?
China has so many resources and so much money, and they don't care about human lives, and they have so much labor that if this were going to happen, in a year, they could literally go and levy the entire coast of every single coast in China that would cause potential problems, have them raised 4 feet or however many feet they want, and problem solved.
Not in 5 years.
Levees overnight.
Not in 5 years.
If China wanted to, I guarantee you, they could probably have majority of their cities completely protected within a year. They have that kind of resources.
But it still doesn't hide the fact that I don't think things are going to happen overnight.
Oh, they're not going to change those ways. If we want to talk about people changing their ways, let's look at Ukraine right now.
Can we go on?
Oh, this is a fascinating situation that's going on in the Ukraine. Basically, Russia's pissed. Putin's pissed, I should say. Putin's being pissy that NATO wants to make Ukraine a partner. Putin claims that NATO is a offensive relationship, not a defensive relationship. And so he doesn't want any more NATO members, and he doesn't want any more missiles, medium or short range, in countries that could impact Russia.
So he doesn't want Ukraine to have missiles.
Well, he doesn't want them in NATO. He doesn't want them in... And he's just acting like a little baby. And so his reaction to NATO, not really caring at this point, is to launch a full-scale invasion of the Ukraine. Right now, he has 175,000 troops amassed at the border that literally once the ground freezes, it's a matter of go.
When the ground freezes.
Well, yeah, you can't roll tanks across. Don't you remember how Napoleon could invade Russia because the ground wasn't frozen?
No, I thought it was because it was too cold and they didn't like the winter.
Well, yeah. What happens? So, okay, we gotta understand Western Europe here. Eastern Europe, I should say. So in Eastern Europe, to move any armies across it, you have to do it in the winter.
Okay.
Back in the day, it had to be done right before the most bitter part of winter started, but the ground had to be hard enough so that your horses and stuff didn't sink in the mud. That's why Napoleon failed. That's why Germany failed.
Mm-hmm.
Because he thought he could get it done in the summer. Well, to get tanks to roll across Eastern Europe, the ground's got to be frozen because it's too muddy otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So, Putin's waiting for the hard frost to hit, which is in January. And once that hits, all he has to do is say, go. And Ukraine will be under Russian control within probably a week.
I see.
So, Russia's now saying, hey, NATO, we'll have... Actually, it was funny. So, Biden had a talk with Russia. No issues. I thought this was fascinating. Biden was like, hey, Putin, we need to talk. And they had a conversation. They went on Zoom and they had a convo.
Welcome. Let's have a vote.
What?
We said welcome. Let's have a vote.
Right. However, Germany, France, and some other leader of some other country were like, hey, can we have a talk to Russia? And Putin just flat out ignored them. And I'm like, you have two other massive economies in the world, France and Germany, that just get ignored like they're a high school girl texting their crush. Like, what? Just straight up getting ignored. But when Biden, who I don't think Vladimir respects in the slightest, says, let's have a talk, he's all ears. And actually, the Biden administration came out Saturday saying that if Russia invades Ukraine, Russians will go home in body bags.
If Russia invades Ukraine,
Russians will go home in body bags. And I'm like, okay, that's in the right direction of the U.S. is actually going to, NATO is actually going to back Ukraine if they get invaded. However, you could say that you're going to get body bags, but that also could just mean what your plan is to do right now, which is continue to train Ukraine troops and give them missiles. Which is not going to slow the invasion. Russia's might break a tooth when they invade Ukraine. They're still going to take over Ukraine and they're going to occupy it, but it's going to be a little bit more bloody and a little more costly than they expected.
Well, why does Ukraine need missiles?
So they don't get invaded by Russia?
But isn't Russia invading them so they don't get missiles?
Yep.
So why do they need to give them missiles in the first place?
Because Ukraine doesn't want Russia to invade them. Because Russia already...
But they're invading them because they're getting missiles.
Yep.
But why do they need missiles?
Because they don't like Russia.
So? They're getting along just fine?
No, they're not.
Why?
Does the Crimea Peninsula ring a bell?
No.
Russia annexed a whole half of the country in 2014.
They're so mad about that?
the whole Western world's still pretty mad about that. 15,000 people have died because of that.
Oh.
A whole section of the country still says it's under Ukrainian control on the maps, but Russia says otherwise. And you'll get shot by a Russian.
Why does Russia need that land?
So they can have a warm water port, so they can have a navy, and they can control the world.
Why do they need to control the world?
Because they don't like the U.S. controlling the world.
Are we controlling the world?
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't really have 11 time zones.
I mean, we literally we have a fleet sitting in every ocean on standby, waiting to basically block up any major ports within, a day, and could bring entire economies to a standstill within a month at the whim of a finger. I think we kind of have parts of the world, by the neck.
I suppose.
However, the U.S. has threatened, we're just going to do sanctions. You know what Putin's response to that was? He went and talked with China, and China's like, we're not allies, but we're best friends. I don't know if he said best friends, but he said good friends. I'm like, what does that mean?
They're not allies.
Yeah, but they're like, if Russia can't trade with literally anybody else in the world, China will buy crap. China has the ability to just buy crap, so why not? If that's what it takes to keep Russia alive, they'll do it. However, China's mad because they have 4 major importers they import food from, 3 of which are NATO members.
Yeah.
And one of them is now a major non-NATO ally. Which means that if the U.S. wanted to, we could make China starve and literally shut down the entire country. Because they import food from us, Brazil, New Zealand, and some other country, I think. They would starve. Maybe not New Zealand. It doesn't make much sense. Either way. Point is, we might get to see a war. Yay! There might also be a war in the Middle East again. I don't know how much the U.S. will be involved, but Iran is getting really antsy, and they're getting real close to getting nukes ready to launch, it kind of seems like. So yeah, that's pretty cool too. You might get to see the first nukes launch since the 40s. Are you okay over there?
Yeah, I think so. I'm dying over here too.
I'm fine. Maybe it's time for the third segment.